Premiership is back, or should I call that the Gallagher Prem? That means one thing, fantasy rugby is also back. But here's the problem, there are loads of fantasy games out there, so which one is right for you? It's tough to know which format is worth your time, and so in this video I'm going to walk through each of the games in place of the Gallagher Prem so that you know which fantasy option is right for you, and I'll also go through some little tips for each game to help you on your way to a great season. From the official Prem game on Superbru to the brand new DraftXV to Dream XV Rugby and even a special multi-league option in the Rugby Paper game, I'll give you the full lowdown. By the end you'll know exactly what each game offers, how they work and which one might suit your style of play the best. So if you want to get ahead of your mates and pick the right fantasy game for the 25-26 Prem season, stick around. So let's start by digging into the official Gallagher Prem game on Superbru. If you played fantasy rugby before, there's a good chance you know Superbru, but the game's had some massive upgrades in the off-season. This season, there are some really exciting new changes. At its core, it's a classic salary cap style game. You get a budget of £100 million to build a full squad of 23 players. So that's one in every position, plus reserves across the different position groupings. At its core, Superbru is a classic salary cap style fantasy game. You get a budget of £100 million to build a full squad of 23 players. That's one in every position, plus reserves across each different positional groupings. So you'll end up with 4 outside backs, 3 centres, 2 fly halves, 2 scrum halves, 4 back rowers, 3 second rowers, 2 hookers and 3 props. Now, unlike some other games, you don't score any points from the bench, but your bench still does matter because if a starter doesn't play, then someone from the bench in the same positional group will sub in automatically for you. So choosing your starting 15 wisely is crucial, but likewise stacking your bench with reliable starters is just as important. There are a few other rules to keep in mind. You're limited to 4 players per club. You get 4 free transfers in each round, and you'll need to designate a captain who will get you double points, as well as a designated kicker who will get your kicking points. But remember, you can't select the same player to be your kicker and your captain. And that adds an extra layer of strategy when you're picking your stars. Okay, let's talk about the 2 big new features coming in this season. First up, dynamic player pricing. This is a brilliant change. Player values will now rise and fall based on both performances on the field and how popular they are in the transfer market. So if a young gun bursts onto the scene, his value is going to rocket, and if your big name gets injured, their price could well slide. That opens up loads of opportunities to buy low, sell high, and build your team value over the course of the season. The second major update is wildcard round. So after each international break, and so for the Prem that's round 5 and round 11, you'll be able to completely rebuild your squad with unlimited transfers. These windows are going to be massive turning points in the season. Perfect if you need to refresh your team, capitalise on the informed players, or recover from those inevitable early season gambles that didn't quite pay off. So that's the structure, but what about strategy? Let's go into some tips. First up, take care of your bench. Remember, once the round kicks off, the whole week locks. You can't change your team then, and with lineups often announced after the lock, especially in round 1 when the season starts on a Thursday night, you'll need to gamble smartly and make sure your bench is packed with nailed-on starters. Secondly, dodge the internationals. Now, it's always tempting to load up on the big stars, but a lot of them will miss big chunks of the season on international duty or resting after the Lions. Your transfers are limited, so focus on consistent Prem starters rather than burning transfers and swapping internationals in and out. Third, watch those deadlines. You've only got a small window between Saturday and Sunday squads being announced at midday and the Friday night game kicking off. Round 1 especially is very tight, so be sharp and make sure all your starting 15 are all confirmed starters. Fourth, chase those price rises. So with dynamic pricing, you can build a stronger squad value if you jump early on the breakout players. Look out for youngsters or backup players stepping up due to injuries or international absences. Someone like Bath's Kieran Donahue, who could fill in for Finn Russell while he's away. There are bargains out there, and they can transform your budget over time. And finally, keep an eye on out of position players. An outside back who's categorised as a centre or a loose forward that's listed as a lock can be absolute gold. And generally, fullbacks and wings who love to run are big scorers because you get big rewards for metres carried, line breaks, and beating defenders. Load up on those attacking threats. Overall, Superbru has really stepped up this season with the addition of dynamic pricing and wildcards. And with a really solid mobile app as well, the Superbru experience is a really polished fantasy experience. Next up, let's look at a completely different option, DraftXV is a brand new fantasy rugby option for the Prem. It's a draft style fantasy game, which is a completely different beast to the salary cap style game we just looked at with Superbru. Here's how it works. Instead of competing against thousands of players worldwide, you're in a private league with your mates, anywhere from 4 to 12 players. You draft your squad over 18 rounds, and once a player has been drafted, that's it, they're off the board. Only one team in your league can own someone like Finn Russell, and that uniqueness makes it really competitive and personal because you're fighting your league rivals for the same star players. After draft day, you can still trade and use the waiver wire to pick up free agents, and each week you go head to head against another manager in your league. You win your matchup and you climb the table, and at the end of the season the top 4 make the playoffs and battle it out for the title. But honestly, the best part of DraftXV is the draft itself. If you've never done one before, it's an absolute buzz. Managers take turns picking players one by one. At the end of each round, the order flips. So if you pick first in round 1, then you'll pick last in round 2. Draft day usually takes a couple of hours, and it's full of banter, curveballs and pressure. And you can even add your own league traditions like punishments for the sacco, the last place finisher in the league, or fun rules like the pink slip leagues. There's nothing else in fantasy sports quite like it. The game itself is available on desktop, but it also has an iOS and Android app, which makes it easy to track your team, make trades and submit waiver claims on the go. Scoring is pretty straightforward, so 5 points for a try, 4 for an assist, a point for every 10 meters carried, 3 for a line break, and kicking is well rewarded, along with many other scoring metrics. Just make sure you avoid those cards, -7 for a yellow and -15 for a red. So let's talk about some tips and edges that can help you win the league. First up, there's no designated kickers. They're not just locked to fly halves, so that's huge. If you can grab a goal kicker in another position, like a centre or a fullback, they can be absolute gold. Second, be ready for Friday midday madness. That's when the team lineups drop and it's a scramble on the waiver wire to fill gaps or grab some last minute starters. So if you're working on a Friday, maybe shift your lunch break to 12 o'clock UK time. Third, come prepared to draft day. Have a strategy, but also be flexible. If fly halves are flying off the board early, then you might need to jump sooner than you initially planned. Don't overload from one club either, and be wary of internationals and long-term injuries when spending those early picks. Fourth, think about depth. It's something that's often called VORP. Or value over replacement player. Some positions, like outside back, are absolutely stacked with options, whilst others, like scrum half, are much shallower. Prioritise the scarce positions where the drop-off is sharp. Fifth, don't just follow the rankings blindly. They're useful, but once you're 6 or 7 rounds in, it's all about squad construction and what your team actually needs. Sixth, dig deep into those lower ranks. Breakout players, new signings, or guys returning from injury can be hidden gems late in the draft. Seventh, the waiver wire is your best friend. Keep checking it throughout the season. There are always bargains, especially when the player suddenly gets a run of starts. And finally, out-of-position players can be brilliant value. An outside back listed as a centre or a loose forward listed as a lock can give you a real scoring edge. I was lucky enough to be part of the beta testing on DraftXV last year, and I can honestly say DraftXV is a brilliant game. If you're looking for a league, then join the Fantasy Rugby Discord. There's a link in the video description. It's a great place to find people, or just drop me a message on X and I'll do my best to match you up with leagues looking for players. So if you want a more social, competitive and fun version of Fantasy Rugby, then DraftXV is definitely worth checking out. Okay, now let's move on to Dream XV Rugby, which brings yet another twist on Prem Fantasy Rugby. Dream XV blends the best bits of daily fantasy with some of the classic season-long mechanics that we know and love when it comes to fantasy rugby. At the moment, it's Prem only, but it really brings a fresh twist on the fantasy rugby space. The structure is simple. You've got a salary cap and you pick 15 starters, 1 hooker, 2 props, 2 second rows, 3 back rows, scrum half, fly half, 2 centres and 3 outside backs. And then on top of that, you've got a super sub, a player who starts on the bench in real life but comes on. And they're going to score triple points when they come on. And that can be an absolute game changer if you get it right. Players' values move up and down across the season based on performances. You get a double scoring captain pick, and scoring is super detailed. Not just the usual tries and meters carried, but things like scrums won, completed lineouts, interceptions, and even meters in contact. You'll also get punished for mistakes like knock-ons, so it really rewards all-round rugby contributions. The beauty of Dream XV is its simplicity and its flexibility. You can completely rip up your team every week if you want to. There's no limit on transfers, so that means you can tailor your side for each week's fixtures without worrying about long-term points penalties. Leagues are another really nice touch, so you can automatically enter the Dream XV League, but also you can join your leagues for your local grassroots club, like I am for my club, Superbru RFC. And there's a kit prize on the line for the winning team. You can also join your Prem Club's fan league for bragging rights. Plus, of course, you can set up private leagues with your mates. The team behind the game are also really active on the socials with a great podcast, so there's loads of community engagement too. So how do you get an edge in Dream XV? So here's a few tips. Don't miss the Friday deadline. Always check lineups when they're announced at midday on Friday before the round kicks off. As with the other games, look for out-of-position players like a back three listed as centre. These can give you sneaky extra points. Take advantage of the unlimited transfers, so don't be shy about overhauling your entire squad between rounds. Load up on kickers where you can, especially if they play outside fly half. Guys like Henry Slade are absolutely golden in this format. And finally, have a plan for your super sub. Forwards like hookers and props tend to come on around the 50-minute mark and can be reliable scorers, but backs are a bigger risk. Play the percentages and think carefully about who you pick. Overall, Dream XV is a really fun game to play if you value variety and weekly flexibility, but you also like to have season-long elements in play all the way through. Now, if you're looking for something a bit different this season, then the Rugby Paper has you covered with their multi-league fantasy competition. This one isn't like the other games that we spoke about. In fact, it's not a classic fantasy rugby format at all. Instead of picking players, you're picking teams and scoring points based across how those teams perform across the season. Think of it as a blend between a fantasy game and a predictor game. It's absolutely unique in fantasy rugby terms. Here's how it works. You need to pick 3 teams from each of the following competitions: Gallagher Prem, PWR, URC, RFU Championship, National League 1, and the 3 National League 2 divisions, East, West and North. That gives you 24 teams in total. On top of that, you'll also nominate 5 joker teams. These are the sides you think are going to dominate their leagues, and they'll earn you double points all season long. Now the scoring is where it gets interesting. It's not just win or lose, it's layered. A home win gets you 10 points, away win gets you 20. Draws are worth 2 points at home and 4 away, and defeats will cost you -10 at home and -5 away. Every point your team scores earns you 1 fantasy point, but every point conceded costs you 1. And there are bonuses too. Hit 25 points in a game and you pick up 10 bonus points, with more points added for every 10 beyond that. On top of that, each month the league leaders across the 8 competitions get you 25 bonus points, whilst the bottom side costs you 25. And at the end of the season, champions give you a huge 200-point boost, but only if you had them in your original team. If you swap them in later, you only get half. It's a pay-to-play game with a £5 entry fee. There are Manager of the Month cash prizes available for the top 3 finishers in each month, and there's even a prize for finishing bottom. The overall winner takes home £500, and I can vouch for that prize personally because last season I actually won the competition with the FRG Select, so trust me, it's a fantastic game to get involved with. Finally, you can follow your progress each week in the Rugby Paper itself, and also via the organiser Ian White's own fantasy sports website. So if you're someone who's got strong knowledge across the Prem, the URC, the Championship, the PWR and the National Leagues, this game is absolutely the ultimate test. And that's it. 4 very different ways to play fantasy rugby in the Prem this season. Whether you're playing the classic official game on Superbru, you're testing your draft skills with DraftXV, you're tinkering week by week with Dream XV Rugby, or proving your all-round fantasy rugby knowledge with the Rugby Paper's multi-league game, there's a format out there to suit every fantasy rugby manager. I'll be covering all these games throughout the season on this YouTube channel and over at fantasyrugbygeek.com with tips, insights, and updates to give you the edge when it comes to fantasy rugby. So if you found this overview useful, then make sure you hit like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so that you don't miss any updates throughout this season's Prem action. And if you've got any questions about any of these formats, then make sure you leave some comments below. I'd love to hear what you're playing this season and what strategies you're thinking of. So thanks for watching, good luck with your fantasy teams, and I'll see you in the next video.